Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nitreg from nitreg.com, and I'm here today to talk about which type of games should I play. What I mean by that is there's three type of games essentially that you can play for no limit hold'em cash games, and that's going to be four ring, which is 9 or 10 handed with 9 or 10 different people at the table. There's shorthanded, which is either six max or four max, and there's heads up, which is obviously you versus just one other player. So I get a lot of questions asked by like students and stuff, and they ask me, I've been bouncing around from four ring to six max. What game should I stick with? What game should I play? And that kind of depends on what you're trying to do and what your skills are and what kind of level you're on in terms of thinking about poker. So I'll kind of go over some pros and cons of each one of these as we go along through this presentation. So the first one is four ring. Four ring is one of my favorites. It's kind of where I played most of my poker career over the last 3 years. It's really fun. I like it a lot. One of the good stuff about it is that you can play very tight and just wait for strong hands. And this is very beneficial for beginning players. The reason is because you don't have to worry about like trying to outplay people or think like super in depth about poker. Like you don't really have to do that. If you're at the micros, you can literally just play a very tight hand range and just make money just by playing solid and playing a solid hand range. So it's very easy for beginning players because you just have your hands that are essentially like a hand chart. And if you follow those, it's going to be pretty easy to play because, you're going to be playing like huge pocket pairs and stuff, and those are generally going to be pretty easy to play. A good benefit for playing four ring is that there's usually a lot of four ring games on most sites. Pretty much every site I've played on, there's constant four ring games going. The site I play on now, mintedpoker.com, it's not exactly the best for four ring. Like every once in a while there'll be one game going of four ring. Other than that, it's just like six max and four max. So check the site that you're playing. Some of them don't offer four ring. That they don't offer it that often, or they don't run that often. When you're playing four ring, you pretty much just want to focus on playing really solid hands in position. It's all about just having a very, very tight hand range and playing in position as much as possible. It's very easy that way. It does get a little boring though, but the game is very easy to play when you're playing four ring. So I highly recommend it for beginner players especially. So let's talk about shorthanded, which is either six max or four handed. This is a very popular game on most sites. You can pretty much find these games all over. I haven't really seen a poker site yet that doesn't offer these games. I'm not sure why, but for some reason it seems to be one of the most popular, if not the most popular online. Whereas if you go to a casino, it's pretty much like 9 or 10 handed. Again, not sure why, but that's just the way it is. It's going to play a lot looser than full ring, but the focus is still going to be playing on. It's going to be playing in position with strong hands. So obviously there's three less players, so you're going to be getting hands more often. And if you get hands more often, you're going to be in the blinds more often. So that means that you got to start, playing back here and there, or else you're just going to get blinded away by the big blind and the small blind. So you're gonna essentially be forced to open up your hand range, which is going to require you to not only get used to your opponent's aggressions, such as stealing, c-betting, and 3-betting, but you're going to have to do a lot of this stuff as well, just so you can kind of cope with all the aggression that's going on. You have to be able to not only win pots by just having huge, strong hands against fish. You have to be able to understand spots where you need to bluff, where you need to thinly value bet, and all sorts of stuff. So this being the case, it's generally a game that's geared towards players that are more aggressive and players that are better post-flop hand readers, because you're going to have a lot of really marginal hands that you're going to be playing a lot more of the time, and that you probably aren't going to be playing that often at four ring. So let's go ahead and move on to heads up. I'm not a heads up expert by any means, nor do I ever claim to be. Other than just goofing around with friends, I don't think I've even played like a single hand online of heads up. But I do know a couple of people that play heads up and kind of talk to them here and there. So I'll just kind of give you a rundown of what I've taken from that, but take it with a grain of salt. Heads Up runs on almost every single site. I don't like search for the Heads Up games or anything, so I don't know which sites are awesome for Heads Up. But I've pretty much seen Heads Up going on almost every single site I've seen. That being said, I also, when I start tables for 4 ring and 6 max or 4 max, I'll just sit down by myself, and usually like a fish will come out of nowhere and play Heads Up with me for a few hands, and then a couple more people will sit down once they see some actions going. But I do have a little bit of Heads Up experience, but it's generally when it's just me versus a massive fish, so I don't have to be like that good at Heads Up. But I do have some experience with it, and I think you will experience it at some point if you're starting tables on any other table that's 4 max, 6 max, or 4 ring. Heads Up requires some waiting and bum hunting. What that means, it's called bum hunting online. I don't know why, but essentially you just sit there and wait for bad players to sit down with you, and or you search out bad players that are currently sitting, and you just try to take all their money. And once they're gone, they're gone. You don't try to play the other regulars. You just essentially wait for the bad players. It's super profitable. Like I think out of the 3 types of games that I mentioned, like Shorthanded, 4 ring, and Heads Up, Heads Up provides the largest win rate of any of these types of games. At least that I've seen. Like I've seen really good regulars because they play nothing but Heads Up against really bad players. They just have these astronomical win rates. The bad thing about that though is that they usually have to wait a long time for these players to come. So it's kind of a balance of figuring out whether you're going to make more money but have less tables open and not be playing constantly, or if you're going to have a smaller win rate but have more tables open and constant games running like all the time, like even 2 o'clock in the morning or noon or whatever. They're constantly running. On certain sites, like here's another bad thing about Heads Up that I'm not a big fan of. On certain sites, you can't play Heads Up unless you're at a certain limit or higher. Like on PokerStars, it's 50 NL or higher. I'm not a big fan of that. It just kind of sucks. And also, when you do play 50 NL or higher, the rake is so high at 50 NL that you can't really play anyone other than just massive fish, or else you'll get raked away, even if you're break even or slightly winning against the player. So that's something you just want to consider. Generally, Heads Up, I think, is going to be geared more towards higher stakes professional type players. I won't recommend it, but I know that some other people will recommend Heads Up. So you might want to try it out if you've got the bankroll for it. If you want, go ahead and check out my bankroll. Video and post that I did on itrig.com. I'll go ahead and put a link to that in the description down below. But essentially, if you got like a huge bankroll, you can try it out, see what you think. It might be right for you, but it might not be as well. So just try it out. But I'm just kind of telling you now what my opinions are. In my opinion, it takes the most amount of skill to play. Lots of post-flop skills needed. You're playing, I don't know what the right percentages are, but if you're playing like over half of your hands, which is going to be around where you're going to be playing at, you're going to have an immense amount of hand reading skills and knowing how to like bluff and thinly value bet and fold, and it gets really hard. Whereas like 4 ring, you essentially just wait for like queens, kings, or aces, and then just bet when you have an overpair. When you're playing like Heads Up, you're gonna have like queen 2 suited and flop nothing. So what do you do? Obviously there's a correct play for all of this, and it depends on your opponent and all that stuff. But that requires a vast set of skills and knowledge about poker itself. So if you're a new player, Heads Up is probably not where you want to be at. Because it's just so much to know, so much to learn, so much adjustments to make, and if you don't know that much about poker, it's gonna really suck for you trying to adjust all these things. On top of that, it has the highest variance because you're playing so many hands and you have to get it in so many marginal spots. You're just gonna have huge swings in your game, and that's true the higher up in the number of players you go. It's gonna get less and less variance. So 4 max, is going to have slightly less variance than heads up. The 6 max is going to have slightly less variance than 4 max, and then full ring is going to have the least amount of variance because you just fold all day and then play a really strong hand. So that's just something to take into consideration. There's some other things to think about what games to choose. It's important to just pick one form of no limit hold'em and just stick with it. All the time I see students like jumping back and forth from like 6 max to 4 ring, and it's fine to like kind of gauge where you want to play and get an idea of what each game is like. But once you have like, I don't know, 2,000 to 5,000 hands of each game that you're testing out, make a decision. Like, just make an honest decision and stick with it. Don't give up after a bad run bad streak or anything. Just pick something. Like, pick 6 max if you're gonna stick with that. Pick 4 ring if you're gonna stick with that. Like me, for example, I was 4 ring forever. When I went to minted, I had to learn how to play 6 max, so I completely dropped all of the 4 ring that I was playing and just focused on 6 max. And now that I'm used to 6 max for a while, I'm probably going to stay there unless I need to adjust, based upon some other variables. But I'm probably going to be staying at 6 max for a while. You want to weigh whether you're a better pre-flop or post-flop player. If you're better pre-flop, you're going to try to stick with 4 ring games where you just stick with the tight pre-flop range. If you're better post-flop, you need to use those skills against your opponents in a shorter-handed game. And also weigh your skill level. If you aren't very good, it's okay. Like, just learn. Don't. If you don't know what to do a lot of the times, like 4 ring is probably going to be the best place for you because you just wait for really good hands and it's very simple. Like, you hit pairs and just value bet. And you're always going to have a strong hand. It's gonna be hard to get like out kicked and try to figure out what to do, stuff like that. So it's pretty easy with 4 ring relative to the other ones. If you want a mass multi-table, you should also play 4 ring because, I mean, this is something that I've done. I've seen a lot of people do. The decisions are so easy, and folding is such a huge part of your game. Like, you're only going to be playing like 14% of your hands or 13% of your hands or something like that. So that means that it's very easy to play like 24 tables because you're just constantly clicking fold, 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 and then eventually you'll see aces and raise it or whatever, So it's very easy to play a ton of tables like this. So if you're like on PokerStars going for Supernova Elite or just trying to get a bunch of frequent player points, it's really good for you because you're gonna be able to just rack up the frequent player points a lot. But if you want to also think about it, you can play 6 max as well, where you get more hands in, which get more frequent player points. So that's something to also consider. Depending on the site, you might want to consider changing your game so you have more options. Like Minted Poker, I changed to 6 max or 4 max so I could, play on Minted Poker with all the juicy games. I changed from 4 ring. Also, like I mentioned before, you want to consider your bankroll requirements. So thanks for watching this video. I want to encourage you guys, if you guys like this video, to not only subscribe up at YouTube up in the top left, but also check out my blog on nitreg.com. I have a link down below. There's going to be a little bit more extensive coverage out in the article. I can't cover this all in 15 minutes on the video. But go ahead and check out the site and be sure to sign up for the email list if you want. It's just going to be a lot of strategy updates and really cool free stuff. Like, I'm not going to be spamming you all day and stuff like that. Also, I set up a new Twitter account over at twitter.com/nitregpoker. Go ahead and follow me there. I try to put out interesting stuff and alert you guys on any cool stuff that I put out, and this is all stuff for you guys to hopefully get better with. Just stuff that I think is really interesting. I'm not gonna just like post random stuff just because I feel like I have to post something. It's something that I think is important and that people should know. So if you guys find this interesting, there's gonna be a lot more of it coming out. So be sure to sign up and subscribe. All right, that being said, this is Nitreg from nitreg.com, and I'll see you guys later.